Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today in this video we're doing more of the lesson. So we're in season 2. This is episode 2 though, so you guys all saw the last video, right? But yeah, so anyways, this episode is all about dynamic, character dynamic to be specific. Dynamic is essentially how two different characters interact. And dynamic really makes people love certain scenes in movies or in films or in whatever. But yeah, so essentially, the dynamic, it needs to be interesting. You need to think about it. It needs to be like, yeah, that would be a good dynamic. You can't really just sit down and think of the dynamic. It usually comes with the situation. So for example, I'm writing a story. This is real, by the way. And so basically, a character comes back from the dead, and another character is about to sacrifice himself. But they go on this journey, like they freeze time. And so basically, now we have this thing where the dynamic is one of the characters is at the beginning of his life, and one is at the end of his life. So it's an interesting dynamic because the one at the end of his life is going to be teaching things to the person at the beginning of his life, all these things and what to learn, and the new person has to see what happens to the person at the end of the life, and so it creates an interesting dynamic. Now a dynamic is always necessary for the main character, the protagonist, and the antagonist. A great antagonist will always have a good dynamic with the protagonist. And yeah, so the dynamic is really essential to make characters talking to each other and interacting with each other interesting. The dynamic needs to be it always needs to be fresh, because if the dynamic's not fresh, and you end up with, whenever two characters meet, people are just waiting for it to end. And you never want that to happen. You always want every scene to be like, I want to keep this going. I want this to keep happening. And the dynamic, it needs to be special. You can't just have it so that the dynamic is like something that you're just like, oh yeah, that makes sense, just at first thought. You need to really think about the dynamic itself and think if it's interesting. A lot of times what you can do about this is you can write a quick scene with them talking, it doesn't even have to be in context with your film. Just the two characters interacting with each other and their dynamic, and then you could just say, okay, so, and then you could just see hey, do you guys like it when, these two characters are interacting? If they say yes, then it's like, okay, maybe their dynamic is pretty good. If they say no, then maybe it's not. Another dynamic that I've used, which you guys can't use it, basically there's a kid, and he's really smart. So, he's really good with science and stuff. And then he meets a girl who can control magic, and she knows that, fantasy and magic and all that stuff, it's real, and science is wrong. And so, this main character who likes science doesn't understand, and that creates a good dynamic because the main character is always trying to explain himself with science, and the girl is always explaining no, that's not true, that's not how it works. It's magic is real, and that's an interesting dynamic. And it also leaves room for change for the main character because he's slowly realizing, coming to terms with the fact that magic is real. So dynamics can be used for a multitude of things, and I think that making your character interactions interesting are good. And yeah.